Ladies and gentlemen, gather round, and let the tale unfold. This is not just a story of battles and glory, but the complete life story of one who bore the title, the Monarch of Beastly Fangs. Picture a young soul, ostracized and afraid, living in the shadow of their own power. Within them roared a legacy of fangs and fury they never asked for, a terrifying strength that marked them as a monster. They hid, they ran, they wore a mask of normalcy, just like any of us trying to fit in. But destiny, like the main villain in a webtoon, has a relentless grip. For you see, the world was not a kind place. Darkness crept from the corners of the kingdom, threatening all they held dear. And in that moment of ultimate crisis, a choice had to be made, to be consumed by the beast, or to command it. The archetype of the reluctant protagonist is the beating heart of so many stories that capture our imaginations, but in the realm of Korean anime and webtoons, it takes on a uniquely visceral and emotionally charged form. This isn't just a hero who hesitates, this is a soul forged in the fires of trauma and societal rejection, whose entire journey begins not with a call to adventure, but with a desperate, daily plea for normalcy. To understand the Monarch of Beastly Fangs is to first understand the profound weight of the power he carries, a weight that crushes the very idea of heroism before it can ever take root. Imagine a boy, not in a vibrant fantasy land, but in a world that mirrors our own, perhaps a modern cityscape with a hidden, pulsating underbelly of martial arts clans, spectral entities, or awakened superhumans. From his earliest memories, he was different. It wasn't a gift, it was a tremor in his blood, a raw, untamed energy that manifested in moments of fear, pain, or anger. Perhaps it was the subtle sharpening of his canines, a low growl that rumbled in his chest unbidden, or a flicker of bestial light in his eyes. These were the beastly fangs, not just a physical trait, but a metaphysical inheritance, a lineage of primal power that marked him as an outsider. His childhood was not one of playground laughter, but of wary glances and whispered rumors. He was the kid other parents pulled their children away from. He was the one left out of team games, not out of malice, but out of an instinctual, unspoken fear. The message was drilled into him daily: you are not like us. You are dangerous. You are a monster. This external rejection soon became an internal mantra. He learned to suppress every strong emotion. A surge of joy was as dangerous as a spike of anger, for both could trigger the beast within. He walked through life with the constant, exhausting tension of someone carrying a glass bomb. One wrong step, one sudden shock, and everything would shatter, confirming his deepest fear and everyone's worst suspicions. This is a core element that makes this archetype so relatable. It's not about fearing an external villain, it's about being terrified of yourself. His primary conflict is introspective. Every day is a battle against his own nature, a civil war waged in the quiet of his soul. He doesn't dream of glory or power, he dreams of invisibility. He wishes for a life where he could simply be, without the constant vigilance, without the fear of hurting someone by accident. This desire for a normal life is his most powerful driving force, making his eventual involvement in the larger plot not a choice, but a tragic necessity. The call to adventure in this narrative is never a welcoming letter from a wise wizard. It's a catastrophe. It's the day the hidden world he tried to ignore erupts into his peaceful, carefully constructed life. Perhaps a rival clan attacks his city, or a dimensional rift spills monsters into his neighborhood, threatening the few people who showed him kindness, the stoic owner of a ramen shop who gave him leftover food, or a stubborn, cheerful classmate who saw a glimmer of humanity behind his guarded eyes. In that moment of crisis, when those he secretly cares for are in mortal danger, the suppression fails. The beast, the very thing he has spent a lifetime caging, breaks free to protect what he holds dear. The aftermath is never triumphant. It is a scene of devastation and horror. He stands amidst the wreckage, his body thrumming with receding power, his clothes torn, and his hands stained not with the enemy's blood, but with the evidence of his own terrifying nature. The people he saved look at him not with gratitude, but with a fresh, deeper layer of fear. He is not hailed as a savior, he is confirmed as the monster he always believed himself to be. This is his rock bottom. The world now needs his power, but it recoils from it in the same breath. He is thrust into the larger conflict not as a chosen one, but as a necessary evil, a weapon to be pointed at the enemy. His reluctance, therefore, is not cowardice. It is a profound and rational fear of the cost. He knows that to engage with this world is to unlock the cage. Every battle is a risk of losing himself to the feral instinct of the beastly fangs. He fears that in saving the world, he might become the very thing he is fighting against, a mindless force of destruction. His journey is, first and foremost, a search for control. He seeks mentors not to learn how to become stronger, but to learn how to wield his strength without being consumed by it. He seeks companions not for camaraderie, but for anchors, people whose presence can remind him of his humanity when the beast's roar threatens to drown out his thoughts. This entire first act of his life, the story of the reluctant monarch, is a powerful metaphor for our own struggles with inner demons, trauma, or aspects of ourselves we are taught to be ashamed of. It's the story of learning that the parts of us we try to hide away might be integral to who we are. The monarch's path to kingship does not begin with a desire to rule, but with the agonizing, courageous decision to stop running from himself. He must finally turn and face the beast within, not as a master seeking to dominate a slave, but as one half of a soul seeking to integrate with its other, more terrifying half. His crown is not forged from gold, but from the shattered chains of his own self-loathing, and his first royal decree is not to his subjects, but to himself, an acceptance of the terrifying, magnificent, and complete being he was always meant to be. The concept of the beastly fangs is far more than a simple superpower or a convenient weapon. It is a foundational, dualistic force that defines the protagonist's entire existence, serving as both his most damning curse and his only possible salvation. This internal power isn't a tool he picks up, it is the core of his genetic and spiritual identity, a legacy etched into his very soul that he cannot escape, only endure and, hopefully, master. From its first manifestation, the power is portrayed as something alien and hostile, even to its host. It doesn't feel like a part of him, it feels like a parasite, a second consciousness sharing his body. When it surges forth, it is often accompanied by a loss of control, a red haze descending over his vision, a roar that isn't his own echoing in his ears, and a primal, predatory instinct that overwrites his human compassion. In the early stages, every use of this power is a traumatic event. It leaves behind a trail of physical wreckage and psychological scars. He isn't just tired after a fight, he is guilt-ridden, terrified of the carnage he has wrought and the pleasure the beast might have taken in it. The fangs are a curse because they alienate him from others, but more devastatingly, they alienate him from himself. They are the reason he can never know peace, for his own body is the battlefield. This power is also deeply tied to his emotions, particularly those he has been taught to suppress: rage, fear, and a raw, desperate will to survive. It's a feedback loop of torment. The angrier he gets, the more the power erupts, and the more it erupts, the more he despises himself, fueling a deeper, more profound anger. It's a self-consuming cycle. The world sees the destructive potential and labels him a monster, reinforcing the very isolation that feeds the beast's nature. He is trapped in a cage of his own making, where the lock and the key are one and the same, this terrifying, beautiful, and raw power thrumming under his skin. Yet, woven into this curse are the undeniable threads of his salvation. In a world of encroaching darkness and existential threats, the beastly fangs are the only force capable of standing against the tide. The very wildness that makes him a danger to his allies makes him an unpredictable and formidable foe to his enemies. They cannot strategize against him because his power operates on a logic of instinct and overwhelming force. It is the unbreakable shield when his friends are about to fall, the unstoppable claw that tears through defenses that no conventional power can breach. It is, quite literally, the only thing that allows him to protect the flickers of light and connection he finds in his life. The central, agonizing conflict of his journey is the slow, painful process of reframing this power. The shift from seeing it as a curse to be suppressed, to a strength to be understood, is the turning point of his character. It is not about taming the beast, but about negotiating with it. He must learn to listen to its instincts without being controlled by them, to channel its rage without losing his purpose. He begins to understand that the feral intensity of the fangs is not inherently evil, it is a pure, unadulterated form of the will to live and protect. His humanity is not the antithesis of the beast, but its guide. His compassion gives the raw power a direction, and the power, in turn, gives his compassion the strength to manifest in a violent world. The curse and the salvation are two sides of the same coin, to reject one is to lose both. Embracing the beastly fangs is the ultimate act of self-acceptance, the moment he becomes truly, fearsomely, and completely whole. The monarch's path is not a simple ascent to a throne, it is a grueling, internal excavation, a journey from the deepest pits of self-loathing to the soaring peak of self-mastery. This is the emotional core that gives weight to every battle and meaning to every victory. It begins with a fundamental fracture in his identity. He has been taught, by society and by his own traumatic experiences, to see himself as two separate entities: the boy, who represents his humanity, his compassion, and his desire for peace, and the beast, the source of the fangs, which embodies raw power, primal instinct, and uncontrollable destruction. For years, his entire life strategy has been to suppress the latter at all costs, to cage the beast and present only the boy to the world. He views his own power as a corruption, a stain on his soul that must be scrubbed away. This internal civil war is utterly exhausting. It's a constant drain on his spirit, a psychological battle fought with every breath. He hates the part of himself that emerges in battle, feeling a profound sense of shame and self-betrayal after every outburst. He apologizes for his own strength, flinching away from the awe and fear in the eyes of others because it mirrors the disgust he feels for himself. He believes that to be good, to be worthy of love and a place in the world, he must only ever be the boy. He is, in essence, trying to live his life with only half of his soul, and the incompleteness is a constant, aching pain. The turning point in this journey is never a single, dramatic event, but a slow and painful dawning of realization. It is often catalyzed by his found family, those few individuals who do not see a boy and a beast, but a single, struggling person. They challenge his black and white thinking. They point out that his beastly ferocity is what saved their lives, and that his boyish compassion is what guided that ferocity to protect, not to mindlessly destroy. They force him to see that his rage is not born of malice, but of a deep, protective love, that the beast's instinct is not for chaos, but for justice on a primal level. He begins to understand that the beast's fury is the inverse of his own capacity to care. This initiates the agonizing process of integration. He must venture back into the memories he has tried to bury and confront the manifestations of his own power not as enemies, but as wounded parts of himself. This is the true training arc, not learning new fighting techniques, but learning to sit with the roar inside his own mind without panic. He must extend a hand to the very part of himself he has been running from. He learns to stop asking, "How do I kill the beast?" and start asking, "What is the beast trying to protect? What pain is it expressing?" Self-mastery, then, is not the domination of one half over the other. It is the harmonious fusion of the two. It is the moment his gentle heart provides the strategic compassion, and the ferocious fangs provide the unstoppable force to execute it. He no longer apologizes for his power, he takes responsibility for it. The roar becomes his battle cry, and the fangs become the instruments of his will. He realizes that his true strength was never in the boy, or the beast, alone, but in the unique, formidable whole that is created when they finally stop fighting and start working together. This is the moment he becomes the monarch, not by conquering a kingdom, but by finally, and completely, conquering himself. The crown is self-acceptance, and it is the only crown that could ever truly fit. The internal journey of the monarch would remain a solitary, philosophical struggle if not for the colossal stage upon which it is set. The epic stakes of the narrative are the crucible that forges his character, forcing growth at a brutal, accelerated pace. This is not a small, personal conflict. The threat is existential: a corrupt empire seeking to enslave the realms, a primordial darkness seeping into reality to extinguish all light, or a rival clan with a philosophy that would reduce the world to a merciless hierarchy of the strong crushing the weak. The scale is intentionally overwhelming. It is a force so vast and impersonal that no single individual, not even one with beastly fangs, could realistically stand against it alone. This immense pressure shatters any remaining illusion of a quiet life. His personal struggle is now inextricably linked to the fate of everything. It is within this sprawling, terrifying conflict that the concept of found family becomes his most vital weapon and his ultimate anchor. These are not mere allies or comrades in arms, they are the architects of his humanity. They are the ones who find him at his worst, bloodied, feral, and lost in the aftermath of his own power, and do not flinch. Instead, they offer a hand, a shared meal, or a blunt, truthful word that cuts through his self-pity. This family is a mosaic of misfits, each carrying their own scars and burdens. There is the cynical strategist who has lost their faith, the fiercely loyal brawler with a hidden sentimental core, the gentle healer who understands pain, and the cheerful rogue who reminds them all what they are fighting to save. Their role is multifaceted. In a practical sense, they cover his weaknesses. The monarch's power might be one of raw, frontal assault, but he needs the strategist to identify the enemy's heart, the scout to find the path, and the healer to mend the damage he incurs. They turn his solitary, desperate strength into a coordinated, strategic force. But their true, profound impact is emotional and psychological. They are his living, breathing connection to the world he is trying to save. When the beast within him whispers that humanity is weak and deserving of extinction, he can look at his friends, at their courage, their loyalty, their stubborn will to live, and know it for a lie. They become his reason why. An abstract concept like saving the world is too vast to hold onto in the heat of battle. But the thought of a specific friend, the strategist's dream of a just world, the healer's vow to never let another suffer, these are tangible, powerful motivators. Their trust in him forces him to trust himself. Their belief that he is more than his fangs slowly, painstakingly, becomes his own belief. The found family does not just fight alongside the monarch, they fight for the man within the monarch, tirelessly pulling his humanity to the forefront. In the climactic moment, when he must finally wield his fully integrated power against the ultimate darkness, he does not do it alone. He channels the strength of their bonds. The shield of the brawler, the wisdom of the strategist, the hope of the healer, it all flows into him, tempering the ferocity of the beastly fangs with the unbreakable strength of shared purpose. He fights not as a solitary monster to be feared, but as the protected protector, the heart of a family. His final, triumphant roar is not one of a lone beast, but a chorus, a declaration that true power, the only power that can truly save a world, is the power born from bonds that are chosen, fought for, and loved. The throne he ultimately claims is not a seat of solitary rule, but the center of a circle, surrounded by those who earned the title of family.